Alright, so now let's get our hands dirty in Illustrator. We're going to first draw some basic shapes. Again, different from Photoshop. Photoshop is a photo editing or pixel editing software. Illustrator is really a drawing software. You really have to think of it as a drawing software. So we're going to go, and I'd like you guys to get this one here, Drawing Shapes AI. Just bring it in. And of course, this is actually from the Adobe tutorial website, and I'm just kind of using their assets and creating a new demo for you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this cute little robot, but initially here's some guidelines and things like that, so for you guys to draw. Maybe it's a better idea if you guys created a new layer, and then let's just lock those two layers. So that is the actual end result was what we want, and this is kind of your trace guidelines. Oh no, it's just your background. Okay, so anyhow, so we're here on layer 3. Let's just kind of get into drawing our first shape. So if you go to here, your shape tool, you can draw a rectangle, and you can see these purple lines that pop up. These are called your guidelines or your smart guides, and if they're not on, they should be on by default, but if they're not on, you want to go down to here, smart guide, right? So that should be on by default, but if you turn that off, you'll see you don't get those purple lines, and by default they're on, and I actually like them on. So what you want to do is you just want to click and drag and draw your shape. And so as you can see, you can create like a really shallow rectangle or a square. So in order for you to get a perfect square, you want to hold down Shift button, and that'll just constrain a square, and then you let go. So I'm going to undo that again. So it's basically click and drag, and before you let go of your mouse, you want to hold down your Shift and drag it to the shape roughly that you want, right? So since I want you guys to trace it, maybe another better idea would be to say my foreground, I want it to be transparent, meaning don't fill it in. And I can come in here and just kind of use these snaps. So it's pretty close, and it's okay also, by the way. I mean, we could take our time and make them perfect, but don't worry about it. I just want you guys to really just kind of use your eyeball and just kind of scale it. You'll see that before, if I deselect it, it'll be a black outlined box, clear. But before you deselect, you see these grips. These grips allow you to reshape things constantly. Of course, you want to hold down Shift to shift it proportionally, or you could just stretch it out. Another thing too is on these corners, it allows you to create a radius. So obviously if you bring it all the way down to the center, it becomes a perfect circle. And so this allows you to create little buttons, you know. Obviously you can see how this is applicable for people who are creating apps and little push buttons for their apps. And then you could also use the arrow key to nudge and move the shape, you know, to the location that you want. Let me go back in here and let's just say I want white. So, and that's it. And then you just click away somewhere else, and you guys have drawn your first shape. So that's how you draw a rectangle, or a rectangle with corners. This one, a triangle, if you hold this button down, you'll get to a polygon tool, and you'll just create a shape with multiple sides, right? Again, you see how it's kind of free rotating. If you hold down the Shift button, it'll just kind of stay locked in. So I'm going to just do that for now. And let me see, I'm going to move it. So obviously this is a 1, 2, 3. It's a hexagon and not a triangle. What's really cool is that you can reduce the number of angles or sides. If you look at this little button here, you see sides. I can increase the sides, and the more you increase, the more circle like it gets. So here I'm going to bring it to a 3-sided triangle, kind of nudge that down, and then hold down Shift. So that's about, you know, what I want. If I want to move it, you can hold the middle button instead of having to go to the move button like I did earlier, but anyhow. And then of course this will also give me a radius too, right? So in this case, we just want to keep it sharp. Just click anywhere else once, and then that gets you back out of that command. And then this is kind of like a beginning of understanding how to take basic shapes and then combine them to get an icon or a shape that you guys are looking for. So in this case, it's basically a circle, triangle, and a couple of rectangles that creates this little hat for this robot. So I'm going to come back in here with the ellipse tool, which is basically a circle tool, and see how I can just drag and drop. But if I hold down the shift, it'll give me a perfect circle. Couple of tricks. If you guys have a trace, so sometimes maybe some of you guys are artists and you might trace something by hand. You might take a photo of it, bring it into Illustrator to use as a tracer, and you want to start from the middle of that. You can click, and you see how it's clicking and dragging from the corner. But if you hold down the Alt, it'll increase from the spot that you clicked on from. And of course, now to hold it, if you wanted to make a perfect circle, you want to hold down the shift button at the same time, and that'll give you a perfect circle starting from the center. And that will be the same for squares too. So if I come down here to a rectangle tool and I say the rectangle, center of the rectangle should be somewhere here, and then you see how it's dragging from the lower left corner or whatever, you hold down the Alt and it'll grow from the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that, and then now I'm going to show you how to copy things. So if I can click this and hold down Alt, you see how I get a double arrow? That means I'm copying. And then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hold down Shift so that it shrinks proportionally. But if I want to shrink from the center, I'm also going to hold down the Alt button. Okay, that's close enough, and I'm going to just do that. And I'm going to take, again, you click, and as you drag, you push down Alt, and then it'll make a copy. And then here, I'm just going to shrink this thing down to roughly the shape I want. Alright, so here, now, unless you guys were really disciplined, and actually you guys will never get these things to line up perfectly, but there are align tools. So if I select all of them, yeah, you'll see up here my toolbar change. So this is align everything to its center. See? You see how all my center lines are completely aligned? No, that's not aligned. What happened there? Let me try it again. It should. Hold on. Let me do that. Interesting. Oh, sorry. It would be this one. Sorry. The other one was distribute. Anyway, here. So you see how it aligned everything to the center? And so that's perfect. I'm going to nudge it in using my arrow button. And then at this point, I could also move it straight down with my arrow button, or if you want to just move it with your mouse, obviously just use the guides, it'll keep you, but also if you hold down Shift, it'll also just keep you moving straight up and down or straight 90 degrees, okay? So there's multiple tools there for you guys. And then obviously you can see here, I have this outline here, and then I have this outline that I want to get rid of. So in Illustrator, it's called a pathfinder. We want to do is combine 1, 2, and 3 shapes into one. And so what you do is you just select all 3 shapes, and I don't see the pathfinder here, but here's a pathfinder tab here. Now if you don't have it on your window, you're going to be able to go here, window, and go to pathfinder. So again, you're going to select all 3 of your shapes, and then you're going to click on this, which means to combine them. And then when I combine them, you'll see that now I have a single shape with a single outline all around it. So now I've just created my first little icon. And then at this point, you guys can move that around. Obviously, this is one shape and that's another shape, so you can choose to select both of these things, right click and group them. So that's different from a combine. Grouping simply means, hey, select them all together and move and be edited as a group. So again, I can kind of reduce that now to the size that I want and kind of get it close. I want to hold down Alt to reduce from the center. And again, guys, I really don't care whether it's, you draw it perfectly or not. It doesn't matter. It's just really to learn how to copy and paste. oh, so obviously these guys it's just this guy, but now they're grouped, so they're going to move together. Well, simply right click and click ungroup, and now you have this. Hold down the Alt button. We need to rotate this thing. If you put your cursor near the corner, you see how you get the rotate icon, and then that's a free rotate. But if you hold down Shift, it'll rotate in 45-degree angles. So I think I'm gonna leave it to you guys from here. Really have fun and go at this thing. Well, let me just do this part right here. Where all the eyeballs and stuff like that. So you could actually take a copy of this and let's actually do the eyeball. So I'm gonna move this thing up here. Kind of do that. So now clearly I can't see the eyeball, right? So I want to also I will probably turn this to transparent, so it's just a select it first and make my fill color transparent, and then I'll just make some circles here. Like that. So you have a couple of choices, right? You could, let me see. So the inside, this is white. So you could do, a white eyeball like that, and then you would need another circle. I'm going to go here so I can kind of see what I'm doing. Alt. You would need another circle, and that circle would need to be like a whatever color that is. Okay, and then that white eyeball needs to come on. But you see how it's kind of sliding behind this pink circle? That's because this circle was created first. So whatever shape you create next, by default stays on top. So what you need to do is you need to bring this thing, right click, and then you can go to, where are you? Arrange, and you can say bring to front, meaning bring it to the most top in that layer. So then now I could actually take that, and that eyeball shows up at the top, right? And then I can now combine these two, or actually center them this way and that way. So that's a perfectly, aligned, eyeball. And then of course, if I turn that back into my white, so I'm beginning to get that robot eye, right? And then of course, so now just please understand we're dealing with two circles here. Oh, and by the way, if you want to make multiple selection, for instance, if you want to select the inside and the outside together, because it's hard to select, because Illustrator by nature will select everything it crosses. So you're going to hit that outline, hold down Shift, hit the other outline. Now if I selected both, and then now if I move, and before I let it go, I hold down the Alt, it'll give me, a copy. All right, so that's also another important thing. So this is one way to do it, and this is probably the basic way to do it, pretty elementary. I might as well just show it to you guys now. What I would normally do is, before I have this eyeball in here, actually I don't know if I could, yeah, before I have this eyeball in here, I have 1, 2, 3 shapes, right? So I can do this, select all 3 shapes, and then I'm going to try to punch it out. And then you see now I have a shape that's punched out. So it took the shape at the very bottom and punched it out with the 2 shapes at the top. And at this point, I can see through, and I can have my background color. And then I can have my eyeballs in there. And then now you can see that the eyeballs are independent of the face of the robot. And sometimes you might want it. You probably, maybe you want a sad robot, or a crazy robot, whatever you want, right? But either way, but let's say you wanted to always move together. You have 2 choices. You can group them, or you could do that and you combine them all together. And then now this is all one shape that just moves with you at all times, right? So it's one kind of icon. So you guys will do similar technique here for the robot body and the robot arms. All right, guys, have fun. And again, you know, this is really more about practice, practice, practice. So if you get this robot down, do it again and again and again until you become really proficient at making shapes, moving shapes, aligning shapes, and things like that. All right, we'll see you in the next demo.